Okay, welcome everyone to Never Alone Live. And I'm Johnny, and I'm joined, of course, by Krista, Sober Barbie. And today we have a very special guest, Asa. Asa, you got a lot of titles, you got a lot of jobs. You are the executive director at Favor Lowcountry, and for the Oxford House. Oxford House is sober living, correct?
Correct.
And you are the training and education coordinator for the state of South Carolina, as well as outreach and all sorts of stuff. Asa, this is tremendous. Let's get into it. Tell us about yourself.
Oh, hi, everybody. I'm Asa. I'm a woman in long term recovery since June 21st, 2018. And as Johnny said, lots of hats over here. A little bit about me, though. I'm from Moncks Corner, South Carolina, which is a little rural town in Berkeley County. Grew up in a household with my parents in active use and was around some really chaotic and not so healthy environments growing up. And what I learned as a child and as I've gotten older is that I'm an empath, and what that means is like I feel other people's energies and emotions. And so what I discovered is being in the energy. And the emotions that my parents were going through and the people coming in and out of the house, I was so full of fear at such a young age. And started drinking at the age of 10 and marijuana at the age of 11. And that kind of just, spiraled and I say graduated to more illicit substances as I got older. So yeah, I yeah, that happened very fast. My senior year of high school, I ended up getting pregnant with my daughter, and by the time I was in my senior year, I not only was cutting school, I was engaging in a lot of criminal activity. I was being extremely promiscuous, and that led to me not knowing who my child's father was. Um, and so I had that guilt and shame surrounding that because in society, of course, that wasn't accepted. Not only that, but going through and being in active use with substances, I could not get my stuff together. And I wasn't able to be a present mom to my child. And I really got caught up in this gang activity and engaged in lots of criminal stuff and robbing people, putting people in trunks, running in people's houses, zip ties, you name it, selling drugs. And that led me down a long criminal path. I think I've been arrested over 60 times. I have been probably in every county jail here, North Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Florida, Virginia. And because of the lifestyle that I lived, I jumped state to state to try to run away from my use, when in all actuality I was like running for myself trying to find relief, which never happened. Wildly enough, I would have some periods of abstinence and trying to get my stuff together and holding down a job here and there, trying to be a mother to my child. But ultimately, I wasn't able to do that because the drugs and alcohol just took over my life. I was extremely powerless. You couldn't tell me that then, though, because then I had my shit together because I was living in a hotel and I was driving around a stolen car, So to me, my perception was so skewed and I was so delusional that I allowed myself to just continue on that vicious cycle for so many years. When my daughter turned 11, she was molested by my dad, and I had gotten her back for a period of time, and I lost my daughter and my father in the same day, and they had put me on like a safety plan to get her back, and I couldn't even do the safety plan to get my child back. Thank goodness I had a close friend of the family take custody of her and give her this fulfilling life that I wasn't able to provide. But that is just an example of how much the alcohol and drugs had a hold of me. Like, I honestly did not care about being a mom. I didn't care about being a sister, a child, a good friend, let alone hold down a relationship because of the manipulation, the dishonesty, the using of people, all of the things to just all I cared about was myself and getting the next drug or alcohol inside of my body. And I literally, I had that tunnel vision for only that. And I didn't know how to get out of it. Like I had never, ever seen or heard anybody. I didn't hang out with people in recovery, right? Like I hung around the people that had what I wanted, right? Or that I could get something out of that I needed. And in doing that, the individuals that my acquaintances that I thought were my friends then were not really good people, and so that went on for quite some time. And I ended up connecting with a woman that I was introduced to, and she was a madam. And she showed me this life where I could, you know, um, do demoralizing things and get money for it. And she introduced me to another group of guys, and I got caught up in a trafficking ring for probably 4 years. And I was moved around all over the state. Myrtle Beach was a really, really prime place for that. And also here in the Lowcountry, like people don't realize this, but Charleston is so riddled with human trafficking, it's unreal. And I was groomed and programmed to believe that these guys loved me, they were taking care of me, when all the while they were using me and putting me out there in really dangerous situations. I was robbed a couple of times. I was raped multiple times, and I never thought I was ever going to be able to get out of that. I would get arrested and they would bond me out, because they loved me or they were taking care of me, right? And I always fell back into that same thing. When my daughter was 17, she called me, and I was in a hotel on Ashley Phosphate here in North Charleston, and she wanted to connect back with me. And she had just turned 17. She was going to run away from her godmother, and she wanted to come be with me. And I felt so like, oh my gosh, I was so happy. And she loved me so unconditionally that I could not do any harm in her eyes. And I remember her coming to that hotel, and I'm an recovering intravenous user, and I was injecting heroin and methamphetamines right in front of her. And I thought that was okay. I also had her, wrapped up in the trafficking ring. And I don't think she ever got trafficked, but she was exposed to a lot of things that she should not have been exposed to. And I never seen it as a negative thing or a bad thing. Again, I was programmed to believe that this was okay. Right. And it's just crazy how I'm sitting here right now, even thinking about that, just thinking about the mental space, the emotional space that I was in, where I just did not care, all I cared about was drugs, so she was with me for about 6 months, and I ended up letting her start smoke weed, and she was smoking some methamphetamines, and like I was making that okay for her. And she ended up starting dating one of my acquaintances that was my age. And I tried to put my foot down and be a mother to her all of a sudden and say, you can't be with him. He doesn't have a job. He's da 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 da. Like I'm now trying to be this mother figure. And of course she didn't respect me in that manner. And she ended up running away with him, and I couldn't find her for like 2 weeks. And, we were moving around hotel to hotel here in Charleston. And I remember getting a call May 18th of 2016 saying I needed to go to the Trident Hospital, that my daughter had been in a car accident. And so, and for me, like woke up, I was dope sick. I was like, sweating profusely. I was, diarrhea, vomiting. And the first thing I thought of was going to get a bag before I made it to the hospital to go be with her. And again, that's just another example of, I could not stop. Like I could not stop. It didn't matter what happened in my life. I could not stop. And I went on about a 3-hour adventure. I never ended up copping. Got to the hospital, was met with the chaplain saying she wasn't going to make it. And in those moments, I was in like a lot of denial, and I didn't want to believe him. And they took me back to the room with her. And, 3 weeks prior, we got matching tattoos on our ankles of the eternity sign, infinity sign with a heart on it. And the only way that I could even verify that it was her was by looking at her ankle. And, by that time, like I'd already burned all the bridges. I didn't have family members to call. I didn't have support system, right? Like I had some dope boys, I had these guys that, it just all the people that I surrounded myself were in that world. And I was sitting there alone with her, and my conscience was clear from chemicals, right? Like I was present. I was ever present. And I got to sit with her her last couple hours of her life. And I remember when she took her last breath, and I I felt her energy leave her body, and there's this energy, and I can't even explain it. Something just, I could almost see it and feel it. And in those moments, I realized that there was something more to this life than what I was living. And whatever happened in front of me, and maybe not death, but that spiritual experience itself, I wanted to know more. Right. And so from that day forward, I just started seeking. And it's crazy that seeking just something more to this life. Like, what am I supposed to do? Seeking purpose, seeking knowledge, seeking spirituality. And, in that moment that was so dark and desolate, like it has brought so much light to my life today that, it's just profound how those negative traumatic experience can take you somewhere that you can't even fathom. Right. Um,
Hey, so I guess got to jump in and thank you so much for your transparency and for your honesty and vulnerability here. These are hard things to talk about. I mean, this is your truth. This was your existence, and our job now is spreading hope and look at Krista and Krista's job is technical difficulties today, uh, but spreading experience, strength, and hope, which you do so well. And I'm going to jump over because there's some comments. Your friend Katie Graham, who is actually the person who, I don't know if she introduced us. She introduced us to Favor Lowcountry, and then we were introduced to you. But she's such a big fan of yours, and you've inspired her. And I know anybody who's watching this, who's going to watch this, is going to be inspired as well, because we grow up in a what we consider normal, and that creates our version of normal. And hindsight being 2020, it was the furthest thing from normal. But at the time, it was okay. And that's where that cunning, baffling, powerful comes in, is when it takes over my brain and makes going to jail normal. Normal people don't go to jail. Normal people don't go to jail, you know. But we allow it to become the normal. I know you're. I want to hear what initially got you sober and stuff like that. But I want to break this down for a second. If we can go on to this topic of creation of normal, and then how we get to redefine it.
hmm. Yeah, I think you said it perfectly. It's wild that society and culture and this normal, right? This normal, and I think that's a cycle in a washing machine, right? Because what is that? My normal then is definitely not my normal now, and nor do I see that as normal, right? Like I don't even know where the hell I got that from back then, and I think a lot of that is programmed by society and conditioning, right? As growing up, like we're supposed to take care of our parents, and there's a whole nother story with my parents and I. Like I could go on for days. And we're supposed to take care of our mother and father, into 10 commandments, even. Like it's really wild. Not that I follow organized religion, because I don't, but it's just really profound how the normal then and what I perceive then is definitely not today. And probably some people would not see my life today as normal either, because it's not theirs. Everybody's definition is different. And that's okay, right? I'm okay with that.
It is absolutely, and but the fact that I know for myself, and I can only speak for myself, but I didn't have a job. I'm living in my mom's basement. I got a baby on the way, and no car and no means of supporting myself, let alone a baby, and waking up in jail every now and then. And if anybody would have asked me, I was doing fantastic. And looking back at that now, and it's like, I was delusional. And that's, I mean, I think normies don't understand that how the drugs and how the alcohol forms us into this delusional, person that we think that this version of ourselves is great.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I often find myself at these tables with these individuals with, law enforcement and public officials and legislation and all of this. And having my lived experience at the table, I feel like it's profound and it's definitely helpful for them because they don't understand it. And they don't understand that, when there was fentanyl that first got, introduced on the streets, like anybody that was a heroin addict, right? If someone passed away or died or overdosed from that bag or that batch, we all flocked to that. And they couldn't fathom, why we would do that. Well, because you're not one of us, you have no clue what we go through, right? That's normal for us, and yeah, I think it's wild when you're trying to explain some of these things to people that just don't understand, you know?
We had so at Freedom Fest, which was down in Charleston, and it was so awesome. Chris Rozier, who who's the chief deputy in Charleston County, he came and he spoke, and afterwards, because he's a normie, he just sat and listened to all these stories and all these people, and he actually told us, he says you changed my life with all this. And because normies don't see it, they don't understand it's learned behavior that we learn, and it's the learned behavior into the progression of the disease. And the disease, it's more than just the drugs and alcohol. It's the thinking that allows me to think that what I'm doing is okay. And so it was profound hearing him talk about that. So that's why we do this. We have these conversations so that, and granted, we've got a bunch of people in the comments that are our friends that are in recovery, but it's for the people that aren't in recovery and the people that are new, that are in their ism right now saying, I'm doing okay. Come on, guy. Let's talk about it.
Well, I think that's one of the main reasons what kept me out for so long is because I was an optimist, because I seen the best in every situation, and it kept me complacent in those spaces. Like I didn't know anything else, so why would I seek anything else? Since you know what I mean? Like, and I think that's why I'm so passionate and I'm so driven to do the work that I'm doing, because people just don't know about recovery. I had never ever been introduced to any form of recovery. I didn't realize till I walked in my first AA meeting that my granddaddy was an Alzheimer's. And then I found out from family that he passed away with 31 years of sobriety in AA. And there were signs all over the house, easy does it, one day at a time. But I had no clue what that was, until I walked into my first meeting. And so it's like, again, it was there, but I didn't know it. And again, I made the best of those situations and normalized what I was doing.
My grandmother was 26 years sober when I got sober, so I know all about it. And my first meeting, I was 9 months old in a baby carrier because my mom was in and out of the program. And I remember the meetings being at my house when I was a kid, and I would walk in, and I was in high school, so I was stoned out the bejesus. And I would walk in, and the smell of coffee, but they always had cookies, and I liked that, especially when you're stoned out the bejesus. But I don't know what's going on with Krista's stuff, but this conversation has been awesome so far. And so now your daughter passed away, and you're still running the streets, right? Let's get to that gift of desperation. What led you to where you are today?
So ironically, and it's wild, when I didn't even realize it till I was out of the other side of it. But for 2 years, after that, I got arrested on her birthday that year after she passed away. And then I got arrested for the last time the next year after, on the day that we buried her. And that was like I was not asking to get arrested. I did not have any intentions on getting caught. But I caught a bunch of charges. I had like 42 felonies out of Manning, South Carolina, Clarendon County. And then I got got caught for 4 more felonies for distribution of fentanyl and heroin and manufacturing methamphetamines the last time. And then also absconding drug court, because they had sentenced me to drug court in Clarendon County. And I absconded and never followed through. So then I caught the 4 more felonies in Charleston, and I sat in Charleston County for about 7 months. During that time, though, I was facing 11 years. So at that point, I had just come to this level of acceptance of, I'm going to prison. It's cool. Like, I'm at a level of acceptance, like wherever the universe needs me, right? Like if I'm needed behind the wall, I'm going behind the wall. If I get an opportunity to go back out, then I get an opportunity to go back out. I knew I wanted something different. I just did not know how to find that or what that was going to look like. And I remember I read some self-help books while I was in there. The Wise Heart by Jack Kornfield. It's the Buddhist principles of the Buddhist psychology. And I started practicing mindfulness and setting intentions and forgiveness. And then I read The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. Great book. And I ironically was locked up with a yogi who was in there for improper use of a telephone. And she introduced me to yoga and the chakras and Reiki healing and all these things while I was in Charleston County. I can't make this shit up. So right before I was released, I was offered a deal to do drug court again. And I was like, sure, like, yeah, I'm down. I had heard that you never get 2 opportunities to do drug court. So when they came to me with that, I was like, profound, like, whoa, this is wild. And so I ended up getting sentenced to drug court. And when I got out, my drug dealer picked me up and put me in a hotel and gave me a pack to sell, right? Because this is the only lifestyle I knew. I was going right back to what I knew. That's all I knew, was like being on the streets. I knew I did not want to go back to my traffickers, right? Like I knew I did not want to, go back into that lifestyle. So I was like, okay, I can sell drugs and I can make this. And I remember going to drug court my first time. I hadn't done any drug testing for them. I hadn't went to any meetings for them or treatment commitments. And ironically, the judge is in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and he sentenced me to 90 meetings in 90 days. And when I walked in that jail, that courtroom, I had an ounce of heroin and an ounce of ice on me in the courtroom, general sessions. And I did not even realize I went in there with those drugs on me until I was leaving. I was like, whoa, something's got to change. Like, I can't keep, either I'm going to go all in and I'm going to do this thing and not sell drugs and complete drug court, or I'm going to run. It's going to be one extreme to the other. And I got a couple of series of phone calls as I was leaving the courthouse that day. And someone told me about an Oxford house and gave me a phone number to call. And I called to set up an interview, and I went to my first AA meeting. And when I walked into that first AA meeting, there were some women, one of the girls I was trafficked with, and a guy that I used to buy dope from as the chair. And I know there's a meme out there that says when you walk in your AA meeting and you and your drug dealer's chairing the meeting. Well, that's kind of exactly what happened. But when I got in my first meeting, I realized, like, y'all are sober. This is where y'all have been. There's no way. Like, when people were sharing, they were sharing things that was going on within me. And I was like, thinking it was the feds, and like, y'all are watching me and this is crazy, and, anyway, when I left that meeting that night, the Oxford house called me, and it was the girl from the meeting that I had been trafficked with that was the president of the house. And that was a whole nother God wink, right? And that aligned, and I was able to get into the Oxford house, and I hit the ground running. Like, I just hit the ground running. Like, I gave the pack back to the dope boy. He paid my deposit in my first 2 weeks of my Oxford house, like, set me up, and I haven't looked back, it's been wild.
And that was June 11th of 2018.
So I got sober in jail. I was using in jail. I didn't get released from jail till October 18th of 2018. I got sober June 21st, 2018. But my recovery journey started when I got out of jail. But I used my recovery date as when I stopped using, because I was still using in Charleston County when I first got in there. It was prevalent on the yard, right? Like, it's very easy to get. And I kind of stepped away from that whole crowd and asked to get moved to a different unit because things were shifting inside of me spiritually that I didn't even realize. I just didn't want to be around that type of thing,
Now, the Oxford House is a sober living community, right?
It is, yeah.
And so you were doing drug court and you were doing sober living. What's sober living all about?
Oh shit. So it's really depending on which sober living you go to. Our model, the Oxford House model, I mean, we have 136 houses here in the state of South Carolina. We have over 4,000 houses in the nation. Here in my area in the Low Country, we have 44. In the last 5 years, I think I've opened 32 of those. So, we have expanded exponentially here. I believe in the model. It's a democratic process. There are positions inside of the house. You have a curfew. You have chores to do. You have to have a job within 2 weeks. You got to find a home group, got to find a sponsor, mentor, or peer support, whatever modality that you work. You have to do all of these things, but the structure aligned with the structure of drug court. So it was really easy for me to get acclimated, especially because I had a little bit of influence from the court system, right? Like had a little judicial push. And I honestly did not want to go to prison. I wanted to do something different. I had that ambivalence of like wanting to do it, but not knowing how to do it. And thank God that the people before me just kind of guided the way and showed me the way. And, it's been a magical experience. So yeah, I think it's different, whatever sober living you go into. I can't say I've seen one sober living ran the same way. Ours is done as a democracy. There aren't any managers. There aren't any paid employees in our houses. They are peer ran sober living houses, and it works. There's a huge study that DePaul University does, and there's an 82% success rate that if you stay in Oxford for 18 months, you can sustain long-term recovery for the rest of your life. And those numbers are huge, right? And it works for me. And I think, because of the life saving that it did for me, like I just keep promoting it and expanding it because there's so many people that want and need, safe, sober living.
Well, let's define. I mean, this is literally for the people who don't know what sober living is. And I got out. It's funny. We're all in the same boat here, and I love when this happens because you got sober in jail. I got sober in jail. Krista got sober in jail. We all look at how much we have in common. But I got out of jail and I went and I never went to sober living. I never went to rehab, never went to detox. Detox was 3 days in a jail cell. But just because sober living is very prevalent down in the South, and up here there's not much sober living. And I'm just outside of Chicago. And you said DePaul, that's a Chicago school. But sober living is
a place you can go and stay, and as long as you stay sober and follow the rules and the guidelines, that you can have housing. You can stay in an Oxford house as long as you like. I mean, we've got people that have been in Oxford for 25 years. We've been existing since 1975. So we have people that have long-term residents. I was in a house potentially for almost 2 years. And then I shifted to my own one-bedroom little cottage house on one of the properties. But it's what you make of it. I'm just going to keep it 100. I mean, you can go in a sober living and use if you want, but you're going to end up getting caught and you're not going to be able to stay very long. With Oxford House, if you have a return to use, you have an hour to leave. And then we provide resources to treatment, detox, or other sober living options for you to go to. But ultimately, with ours, we have strict stipulations that if your behavior is off or you could be expelled for return to use. So
you pay rent. Do you pay? Is it utilities are included and all that other stuff?
Yes.
What are the nitty gritty details?
So depending on which, and I can only speak for Oxford House, right?
Yes.
So that's the only thing I have experience in. So with us, you have a $150 non-refundable move-in fee, and this goes across the nation, right? Every house. And then it's depending on the house, you pay $120 to $200 a week, and you pay that in advance. So potentially our houses here in the Low Country run between $150 and $170 a week. That includes your rent, your utilities, all of the furniture is provided. Everything is there. All the house supplies, cleaning supplies, toiletries, all of that is there. The only thing that you will need to provide is your own food if you want special food, but banks drop off food to our houses all the time. I can't say that about every Oxford house, right? But here in the Low Country, we have set that up to get people food that maybe need food. So yeah, it's everything's included. That's the internet, your phone. There's a house phone in every house in case you don't have one. And then again, water, lights, rent, all of that's included in that.
Yeah, I love that. And that's something that I don't think people understand that's out there is for $600 to $750 a month. You're paying for your rent, the utilities, the gas, the water, the internet, this and that. What would cost you, even in a shitty neighborhood, what would cost you $2,000 a month, you're getting for half of that, and you get the stability, and you get you get meetings, and you get some accountability, and I think sober living isn't talked about enough. I go to talk at rehabs a lot. I go and talk at detox a lot, and all these people that say they're going home after they get out, give yourself a chance. Give yourself a chance. Sober living is a tremendous opportunity. Now let's talk about who can go to sober living. You have to come out of treatment of some sort.
Nope. You can come straight off the streets with us. You can have a positive UA. You can have drugs in your system as long as you are honest about where you're at and share that and be transparent with wherever you're interviewing at. They will let you in the door. It doesn't matter. We don't require detox. We don't require. Now, if it's alcohol or Xanax, we are liable to hold you accountable to getting to detox. But houses will potentially hold the bed for you if they vote you in, and just help guide you on that journey and get you into detox. And once you detox off of alcohol or Xanax, you can come in. We accept individuals that take MOUD for medicines for opioid use disorder. So we take all those. And it's we try to meet people where they're at, right? Like, and try to provide, these things for them. But there are no other stipulations. You can come in without money even. A lot of our houses are financially stable. And if not, there's some, grant funding, there's scholarships, there's all these things in different organizations that we network with that can help financially too. And Invoke Rehab is a great resource. They help you get job placement. They help with EES. They help with bus passes. They help with all of the things. So, we have such a huge resource, and especially here in the Lowcountry, like so many organizations and nonprofits that, are here to help people as long as they're willing to get the help,
And that's what most people. So why, when you look at the numbers of people that relapse after rehab, right? Something like 70 to 80% of people relapse. Why? Why do you relapse? And it's because life happens, and don't have a job, don't have a car, don't have a good place to live, don't have this, don't have an education, don't have means, don't have food. So what do? They turn back to their old solution, which is, as we were talking about before, that was normal. Doing it this way is the abnormal. If you get sober, I got sober at 26. So I had 26 years of learned behavior. And then now I'm fresh out of rehab, 30 days gung-ho, and I have to learn all of it all over again with all this knowledge behind me that if I could just go sling a little dope, I'd be fine.
Yeah.
That's that start of the relapse. And
and I really appreciate you mentioning, like, your treatment. You didn't get an opportunity to go to treatment. You didn't get an opportunity to go to detox. And why we have such high rates coming out of treatment is because those individuals are not connected to recovery. Those are two different models, right? You have a treatment model and you have a recovery model. And I believe in the recovery oriented systems of care model, allowing someone to gain as much recovery capital that they can obtain to help support them in their recovery. And it's wild because a lot of these states, and South Carolina being one of them, is a treatment state, right? Like, all of the funding goes through the treatment. But what happens to these individuals after treatment? Just like you just stated, they go back to the same people, places, and things. They go back to the same things that was their normal, right? And it's like introducing those individuals to community, to connection, because the opposite of addiction is connection, right? So, to those recovery communities where they can be around the same individuals with the same ideations, right? Like, it's you can't put someone. It's almost like that story, the forest with the tree, and you plant a tree in between by a dead tree, the tree's going to die. If you put a tree by a live tree, the tree's going to flourish and grow.
Oh, what a picture you paint with those. Right? Oh, that was a good one.
So you put somebody back in this environment where it's still unhealthy and they were not thriving and they were dying. And then you could put them into this community where it's alive and thriving and doing the things that, for a fulfilling, purposeful life, right? It's just wild.
The word you just said is something that recovery capital. Every meeting I go to is recovery capital. They said that 90 and 90, so important, so valuable. And I think it's crucial because it's that foundation, and you get that good foundation. If you try stacking stuff on a shaky foundation, you're going to be shaky. Whereas if you get that good foundation and, you start stacking on top of it, now you can actually move. Now you can breathe. Now you can grow. And oh, I love that dead tree analogy you just did. That was beautiful.
I mean, it's way more, the way it's like, the story of it is way more, detailed, but I did the short route.
Yeah, that was perfect. That was absolutely perfect. So, okay, so we've talked. I don't want to beat up sober living anymore, but I'm glad we talked about it, and I'm glad we clarified it for people who don't know. So, I want to. My next question is: you've jumped into working in the recovery field. When did you do so? What was your calling to do all this?
So, to be quite frank with you, I was living in an Oxford house for 2 years, and I got the opportunity to become a certified peer support specialist. And I did the training, and I learned so much because I had this biasness, not only towards medicines for opioid use disorder. I believe absence was the only way, AA all the way, 12 step, 12 step. And it opened up my heart and mind to so much more and so many different pathways. And I got the opportunity to get hired on with Oxford House. And my first thing, my passion, what drove me to begin with was opening women and children houses so that nobody will ever have to go through what I went through with the loss of my child, right? So I could not get sober and get my daughter back, right? I didn't get it done, and she passed away, right? There was no opportunity for me to do that again. However, with my living amends, I have opened probably 14 women and children houses and have been able to connect these women back with their kids and get custody back of their children. Right. That was my main drive. I don't, and it still is drive, right? My daughter is my drive. Right. And it's like trying to help people and men. I don't want to just single out females, because fathers still want to be fathers to their children as well. And it's providing those spaces to be able to heal with their children. Right. And so that was pretty much the catalyst of me coming into working into the recovery field. At the same time I got hired on with Oxford House, I got hired on at a 301, Dorchester Alcohol and Drug Commission. And it's a totally different world in the 301 system. But I was able to get those experiences through the 301, and then also with Oxford House. And the dynamic of the peer support in both of those worlds is just totally different, right? With Oxford House, there's a lot of case management. There's a lot of, riding people around. There's a lot of all the things really in depth. And then with the 301, you have all these stipulations and guidelines and politics and all of this, which I did not really care for. Also, you were enclosed in an office for, 8 hours a day. I wanted to be out in the community. I wanted to be doing all the things. So what the board chair for Favor Lowcountry had reached out to me through another friend, had heard about me, and they were like, hey, why don't you offer Asa the job? And this place was about to dissolve. It was, COVID happened. There was nothing going on. They couldn't keep an executive director. They couldn't keep an employee. We only had the peer support trainings going on. So we do that here at Favor. We do the training, 46-hour training to, train individuals to become peer support specialists and then embed them out in the community and organizations and entities that hire peers. Right. And so that was the only thing going on at that time. And I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I'm going to be quite frank. I have learned through a lot of mistakes of what not to do. Right. It's been a huge learning experience. All the while, I was working on my bachelor's at the College of Charleston. So I've been doing that. I did that too. I just graduated in December with that. And I'm now in the master's program for public administration. So I'm wanting my goal now, because everything has shifted. I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. Right. I knew I wanted to help people. I knew I wanted to continue to open houses, which I do. I just didn't know where the universe needed me to be. And somebody approached me and said that, I have a great stage presence and a voice that people listen to, and I really needed to get into legislation and policy change. And so that's the path that I'm going right now. And I'm in hopes that one day, wherever I'm needed in that space, I will be a voice. And I have been able to create initiatives and programs through this position and learning grant writing and getting grants. And we went from a $90,000 a year organization to year 3, we are almost at 750,000. That's not, right. It's not a lot, but it's way better.
Way better.
It's not like to me because I have goals and vision and aspirations. I'm trying to be a millionaire, yeah, a million dollar organization, right? That's my
Well,
goal.
everything's got to start somewhere, and
Absolutely.
you're on a great start. So Krista's having huge technical difficulties, but she's in the chat right now,
Yeah,
and
no
she's
worries.
okay. I'm in the chat, and it won't let me do anything else. But she doesn't want to miss this one. So Krista is a huge fan of yours. I don't know if you know this,
Oh, that's awesome.
and she is in the process of trying to start a sober living in her community, and she's in front of the government trying to adjust policies as well. So she did not want to miss this one, and here she is having technical difficulties today.
Well,
But
her and I can jump on a call outside of this,
for
and I can kind
sure,
of help guide her. But there's ways that you have to approach this, and we have going back to the suburb. We have a hell of a legal team out of Washington D.C. The founder of our organization was a lobbyist, Paul Malloy. He is an amazing guy, but he got policies and legislation changed for Oxford houses. So there are a lot of stipulations that you have to go through if you're not an Oxford house, right? And I know that sounds crazy, right? But there is protection in legislation for individuals with disabilities, right? The 1988 Federal Fair Housing Act. It protects individuals with substance use disorder, so they cannot discriminate. So and that doesn't it's not just Oxford House. That's with any sober living. So if she's running into anything, she can refer to the Federal Fair Housing Act. And there's a couple of other things that she can lean into. It really just depending on what kind of sober living that she wants to open. There's a lot of red tape in different counties and different areas and zoning and building.
it's different state to state and city to city and county to county, so it's different all over. But Kyle, our friend Kyle, who is he's actually this hoodie I'm wearing, normalized sobriety. He's from Wisconsin, where he says that alcohol has been normalized, and they've normalized drinking, and people can drink at underage and things like that. So he started normalized sobriety, and he just said in the comments that they have a real lack of sober livings in Wisconsin, and he's on boards and trying to do things the same things. But it's different everywhere, and there's different laws and rules. But then the Oxford House, how many Oxford houses are there in the country?
Over 4,000. I think we're at 4,387 when I looked yesterday. The number just keeps growing because
Nikki's in here saying she's got Oxford houses in Arizona, and that's the best thing about this. So I'm gonna get Asa on Tiki Taki, whether she likes it or not, because we get to make all these friends all over the country, and and we get to see how it is in other places. If I hadn't done all this with Krista, I would have never been in Charleston for Freedom Fest and learning about all the stuff that you guys are doing down there. So it's so now you got to get on Tiki Taki. I'll get you there. So you got into Favor Lowcountry. They pulled you in. You've becoming executive director. What policies have you been able to adjust, and what's broken that you are fixing right now?
Currently, or all through it?
All through it. Okay,
so one of the things. So what I've done is I've used my experiences and everything that I went through, and the barriers and challenges that I had to overcome. Right. So I'm using those experiences to change the systems. Right. So for instance, I was arrested. I don't know how many times over 60, right? Out of Alcana Detention Center here in Charleston County. There was never any resources offered to me. There were never any recovery, nothing, no housing, no anything. And I would just revolving door, just in and out. And so what we've done is I created a pilot. We started it back in July, where we have peer supports going inside of the jail and creating recovery plans for individuals before they get out. So landing them in a sober living, connecting them with the recovery community, connecting them with the peer support while they're in there, the peer support that they'll be working with out here. Right. So they're already connected, have a bond connection, and then connecting them to whatever modality of recovery that they they think is best for them, because we let them create their recovery plans, right? What that might look like. Also, advocating for them in court, right? When they go in front of the judge and they've been working with this peer support for X amount of time, we write letters of support and show up to court for them, so that we could hopefully get their sentences reduced, or deter them from going to prison, right? If we can get them into a treatment center, if that's what they need, or if they need detox, if they're only in there and they get a PR bond out, we might meet with them one time and try to advocate for that. So going into the jail presented a lot of challenges. One, I was working with the previous sheriff. Roger works for Richie, and Richie is the sheriff now. But before that was another sheriff, and I had multiple conversations with her over the last 5 years. She talked great and never followed through, unfortunately, and that's neither here nor there. And then Richie got into office last year, and I was able to have a sit down with him and explain to him where our challenges were, where we weren't feeling supported. Like, people need a chance, they need an opportunity to recover. And you couldn't have any type of law enforcement infraction, or you couldn't connect a seatbelt ticket, a warning, or any of that to be able to go inside the jail. You had to have a 10-year window of not having any infraction. Well, I mean, I've only been out, then it was 6 years, and they wouldn't let me in. And I'm like, that's one thing that's got to change. If you want someone with lived experience that has had experience with being inside of the jail, as well as substance use disorder, more so opioid use disorder, because that is what we're dealing with here in the Lowcountry, is the overdoses. It's just wild. I'm like, that's the first thing that's got to change. So he rewrote the policies inside of the jail, and now we have 5 peer supports going in weekly.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and that's been wild, right? Like, that's been a crazy experience. And I mean, the success stories that we're hearing coming out of it. One of the gentlemen that was approached by one of the law enforcement, his last time that he was arrested, he was offered these services. That's been a crazy experience. And I mean,
don't mind me. It's I'm checking on things and pushing buttons.
Okay, cool. He came to me day before yesterday, and he was like, if it wouldn't have been for that officer, trying to offer me help, I wouldn't be where I am today. And he's now over a year sober, and he was one of our beginning people in the pilot that we worked with. And just hearing that, just warmed my heart, because like, sometimes I always feel like I'm not doing enough. Like, there's so much stuff that needs to be done. And I realize I'm only one person, but at the end of the day, it's like, so many people need help. And anyway, it was very fulfilling and rewarding to hear him say that. Another thing that we did, we have overdoses, and of course, I think everybody is facing those. But with law enforcement, they're the first ones at the scene. And so we have paired with the Charleston City Police Department, and they just hired a peer through us. And they're going to be doing follow-ups for overdoses, and doing drop-off bags, and providing resources for individuals, planting seeds, if nothing else, to let them know, like, hey, when you're ready, we're here for you. And it's wild to see the recovery in the public health sectors come together, right? Like, it's never been that way. And addiction is a public health problem. Like, it's not just, it's just wild. It's really cool to see. And then we have the Bridge to Hope app, which you get 24/7 peer access at any time, and resources and treatment centers and detoxes and sober living resources. And right now it's only covering Berkeley, Charleston, Dorchester counties, but we have a vision for expansion throughout the state, and at some point maybe further. But the logistics and the analytics behind that app is something savage. And
that's what I mean. I've heard about it, and I want to go back to the advocacy at the courts, because I mean, if Roland Hazard hadn't been at the court to talk the judge out of letting Ebby out, Ebby wouldn't have found the Oxford Group, and he would have never talked to Bill W. And this is, every time you do what you do, you are potentially creating another Ebby that creates another Bill Wilson. That's enormous. And this is the kind of crucial thing that people don't do, especially people who go to meetings. They go to meetings, they don't drink, go to meetings, they find God, they have faith, their life gets a little better. They keep going to meetings, they keep helping others. It's doing these other things. It's going above, it's going beyond, and it's getting involved, and that really changes everything. And what you're doing right now, you're changing society. You're not just changing, one person at a time. You're changing thousands.
And I still have lots of work to do. So, and I realize that, right? I've accepted my purpose here. I know that it's bigger than I could ever even imagine. And I'm okay with that. Like, right, I'm just going with the flow of whatever the universe brings in front of me. And if whatever that looks like, we've been able to expand our services in Berkeley County, and we have a peer support that does outreach out there. We created a program for Regulate and Recover, which is working with violent offenders coming out of probation, pardon, and parole, where they can work on their anger management challenges along with their substance use with a clinical component here. There's so many programs, and it's just wild. It even feels weird just saying all that out loud.
So what is let's I'll give you the last question is what is your hope for the future? Look, I get asked tough questions every now and
then. Continue to heal society, I'm really big. I'm a Reiki master. I collect crystals. If you can't see behind me, I have a lot of them. And my whole house is gridded. My office is gridded. My car, I wear them usually on me at all times. I believe in the healing of crystals. I do a lot of meditation. I do a lot of sound healing. And this is all for my self-care, right? Like I feel like that's imperative for my spiritual well-being. And I also, take trips and love the mountains and the water and all the things, right? And so I have realized that I am a conduit to continue to heal. And there's so many different levels to that. And right now it's, at a level. And when I lean into my Reiki healing, that's another level of healing. And when I get into legislation and policy change, that's going to be a whole nother level of healing. And it's just, I want to continue to promote healing. That's my goal. And that looks like not just with substance use disorder, because when you remove the substances, you still have a lot of things you need to heal. And it's with healing families, it's healing relationships, it's healing jobs, it's healing, spiritually, mentally, yeah, that's my goal.
The awareness isn't as big as it needs to be. The fentanyl crisis is just that. I don't believe that there is experimentation anymore. I'm 48, and 30 plus years ago when I started, experimenting with drugs, it was a lot different than it is today. Everything is stronger, and now they're adding fentanyl to everything. The days of experimenting with drugs are gone, and because anything can kill you now. And people don't get that. They still think that, oh, well, my parents smoked weed back in the day. Yeah, great, but this ain't your dad's weed. This is everything is laced. Every bit of heroin is laced. Every pill that comes off and being sold on the streets is laced. Everything you're putting into your body could be laced and could kill you. The awareness needs to go out, and the fact that I know the numbers in South Carolina, I know the numbers in Charleston County. The overdoses there are out of this world, and this fight that I know you're fighting, that I know that Chris is fighting, is more the fight of awareness than anything else. Letting people know, dude, this is not the way to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So Asa, I'm so glad you were here and joined us today. I'm so, Chris does technology. She's gonna be yelling at me all day long because her technology wasn't working. But this was a great conversation, and I'm so grateful for you for all the things that you're doing. And anybody who gets to work with you is very lucky, because you can't passion is something that you can't pay for or sell. It's inherent, and you've got it, and that's awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate you all for having me today.
Yeah. So thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you again next week. And God loves you, so do we. And have a great day.